Hola a todos, soy Javier Poveda y esto es De Bien TV, el canal donde te lo vas a pasar de bien mientras aprendes geografía, historia, historia del arte y algo de economía y de empresariales. Este vídeo va dirigido a mis alumnos de cuarto de la ESO de sección del CEIPSO, el Encinar de Torrelodones. So in this video we are going to make a brief summary of how to comment and analyze a historical text. You have the document in your virtual classroom, but here we are going to explain it in a short video. I hope it is a short video. So when we face a historical text, what do we have to do in order to comment it or to analyze it? First, we have to read the text. This may seem stupid, this may be obvious, but many people don't read the text before commenting it. So please first read it slowly, read it carefully, make a comprehensive reading, understanding every part of it. So we have already read it and now we face the comment. What do we do first? First we have to do a classification of the text. What do we say here? First, the type of source. Is it a primary or a secondary source? What is the difference? In a primary source, the text is written in the same period that the events that it is talking about. If it's a secondary source, the text is written later or after the events of the text has happened. Okay? Way later. So, after that, now that we know the nature of the text, we have to talk about the type of source. We have to talk about the nature, the type of text. The text, a text can be one of these four types: legal, historiographical, literary, and circumstantial. There you have the nature of the text. I don't know how to do this, how to point this. Well, there you have. So a legal text can be, for example, a law, a treaty, an edict, etc., etc. A historiographical text is a text made by a historian, and he's talking about history on the past. A literary text is a text such as a novel, an essay, I don't know, a poem, an article, a letter, in which the author expresses his opinion or her opinion. And finally, a circumstantial text is a text in which we classify the rest of texts. For example, I don't know, these can be speeches, resolutions, agreements that are not legal, economic or social reports, etc., etc., etc. Okay, they pretend to be an objective text. Okay, those are these four types of texts. Then we talk about the author. Who wrote it? Who wrote this text? Do we know anything about it, about him, about her? So we write it very briefly, okay? A short biography or about who is the author. Finally, to end this classification, the addressee. To whom is the text addressed? Who is going to, or who the author pretends to read it, okay? To read the text. This addressee can be public, can be private, can be an individual, can be a collective. So we have to point out who is this text directed to. Once we know that, we have classified the text. And now we go to the big part of the commentary, which is the analysis here, and the commentary. Okay, in the analysis, first we have to extract the main ideas of the text. What is this text about? What is the purpose of the author? What is in this text? What is the author trying to say to us, the readers? Okay, we have to express these ideas without paraphrasing the text, okay, using our own words. And after that, we have to talk about the structure of the text, the parts of the text, Does the text have several parts? Does it have one part? Does it have an introduction? Does it have a conclusion? Does it have two main parts, or three or four, whatever? Okay, we have to point out the structure of the text. First the ideas, then the structure. And now we have analyzed the text. Then what do? We comment here. We comment the text. We have to relate the events, the facts, what the text says, to its historical background, to the historical context. Okay, this we have to establish relations between what the text says and what we know, because we have already studied it, about the historical period the text is talking about. Okay, we will see this in a better way with an example later. And finally, we finish our commentary or our analysis with a conclusion, in which we criticize this text, and we have to point out the relevance of this text. Is this text relevant to the historical period in which it is included? Is this text objective? It is subjective? It is just relating to a specific point of view or not? Is the author lying? Is it honest? Okay, all of this our personal view, not our opinion, but our point of view about the relevance and about the relevance of the text and its importance within its historical period. Okay, so that's it for making or for commenting a historical text. Now let's go with a fast example that we already have seen in class. Here we have a text from Montesquieu in his book The Spirit of the Laws, written in published in 1748. In each state there are three kinds of power. In the first one, the prince or magistrate makes the laws for a certain amount of time or forever, and corrects or abolishes the ones already made. The second power makes peace or war, sends or receives ambassadors, establishes public safety and prevents invasions. And the third one punishes crimes and decides disputes among private citizens. When the powers are concentrated in the same person, then there is no freedom. So, magic again. So, let's analyze this text following these steps. First, we have to classify the text. Type of source, primary or secondary? It's a primary source because Montesquieu is writing in the 18th century and he's talking about the events that happened during this time. So it's a primary source. Then the nature. It is legal, historiographical, literary, or circumstantial. Well, this is a literary text because it is an essay and Montesquieu is expressing his opinion. Okay? Here he is expressing his opinion and we see that very clearly in the last paragraph. Okay? When the powers are concentrated in the same person, then there is no freedom. Okay? So it's a literary text. The author. Who wrote the text? Well, this text was wrote by Montesquieu. And now we talk a bit about him. Who is Montesquieu? Montesquieu is a French author from the Enlightenment, and he was one of the most important thinkers of this period. Just it. That's it. A short description of him. And finally, the addressee. Who is the addressee of this text? Because the addressee of this text is the public, is the readers. Are the readers are the addressee of this text. This is a public text which is supposed to be read by everyone. Okay. Well, I forgot to talk about the time and space context, but we already said it when we talked about the author. We have to say also we have to talk about the time that it is this text is written, and the space where was it written. In this case, this text was written in France because Montesquieu is French, and it was written in 1748. Okay. Then we analyze the text. What are the main ideas of the text? Very short. So this is very easy. Which is the main idea of this text? Montesquieu is talking about the separation of powers. He's supporting the separation of powers. Why? Because he talks about the three types of power, the first, or the three kinds of power, the first, the second, and the third, and then he talks about that when the powers are concentrated in the same person, then there is no freedom. So the main idea of this text is the support of the separation of powers. Does this text have a structure? Yes. First, he makes an introduction in which he explains, in this first paragraph, he describes the three kinds of power, and then he has a conclusion in which he gives his opinion, his thinking. Okay, it's conclusion. It's a conclusion. So that is the structure. First a description, then a conclusion. Then we have to comment the text. We have to relate these texts with what we know about the historical period, about what we have studied. So what should we talk about in this text? First, about the absolute monarchy, because Montesquieu is criticizing the absolute monarchy of the Ancien Regime, and he is criticizing it here in this paragraph. When the powers are concentrated in the same person, in the absolute monarch, then there is no freedom. So we talk about what we know about the Ancien Regime and the absolute monarchy. Also, he is supporting the separation of powers. This is a main idea of the Enlightenment. So we have to talk about what is the Enlightenment, what were the main thinkers. One was Montesquieu and also Voltaire and Rousseau, and what happened with what was the consequences of this. We haven't studied it yet, but we can talk about that these ideas were the basis of, or the causes of, the French and American revolutions, for example. Okay, and with this we have our commentary, or the commentary part, already done. And finally, a conclusion. We can criticize the text, and we can talk about its relevance. There is no need to criticize this specific text, but we can talk about its relevance. This text is very relevant because in here the author Montesquieu establishes a main principle of the Enlightenment and a main idea that will be used by the bourgeoisie to start their revolutions. For example, the separation of powers was how do we say this? Was a petition, was an objective of the revolutionaries which wanted to abolish the absolute monarchy, okay, both in the American or in the French revolutions that we talked about before. For example, in the American Revolution, this is very relevant because the American Constitution of 1787 established the separation of powers within the United States of America. You know, the executive power, the president, the legislative power, the Congress, and the judicial power, the Supreme Court. Or, for example, in the Constitution of the Constitution of the French Republic, the first French Republic in 1793, there were, that is not a good example because the three powers were concentrated in the convention. But okay, I think with the but in the 19th century revolutions, this will be a main idea. Okay, forget about the French Revolution. Okay, but for a good example is the American Revolution that we are going to study in Unit 2. And with all of that, we have our commentary done. Okay, this is very easy to do, but it is very important to read the text and to make a comprehensive reading and to understand all of it. Okay? So that is all for this video. Espero que lo hayáis entendido, espero que os haya gustado y recordad, para hacer un comentario de texto se clasifica, se analiza, se comenta y por último se concluye. Muy sencillito. Muchas gracias por ver el vídeo, dale like, suscríbete, sígueme en Instagram y nos vemos en el próximo. ¿Cómo se apaga esto?